Pursuing your passion is a labor of love. All this hard work has to go today. If it's not, it's no longer relevant. It doesn't make the cut. If you have a really good concept, donors will fund it. And if you lead with a heart, if you connect with people's emotions, your message, your stories have a bigger chance of being embodied, embraced. Ni kujituma, you need to send yourself, you need to be interested. Just having the right idea for your brand is essential, because everywhere people interact with you, they know this is USA. This is USA.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of Biashara Box podcast. And I'm very happy today to be discussing storytelling, writing, and copywriting, and all that in one basket. In the last few days, I have been trying to share online about the pillars of content creation and digital media. And just to make sure that we are on the same page, we are talking about graphic design, which some people call visual design. We are talking about photography and video. We are talking about SEO, search engine optimization, and analytics, which is important to be found out on the internet. And it's also important to find out the metrics, the data, the engagement for your social posts, for website and other digital platforms. We are also looking at social media proficiency, one of the key pillars of content creation and digital media. We're also looking at audio. We know we have podcasts and they have their own audiences and they have their own functions. So when we talk about the pillars of content creation, those 5, 6, 7, depending on how you look at them, are the ones that hold content creation and communication and digital media today. So we have Kathy with us today, who is going to be talking to us about storytelling, about writing, about blogging, about copywriting, all that in one basket. So Kathy, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
I am very happy to have you. And finally, we have somebody who is coming from the other side that is not so common. Nimekuwa na photographers hapa, nimekuwa na watu wa video. So how have you been?
I've been well. It's been good. Glad to see this side of business. It's a necessary conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has been keeping you busy lately after COVID? Tukakuja ukaanzisha hii picture. What has been keeping you very busy in the last 1-2 years?
Well, it's been, let's say, an idea I've had for a long time. Let's say when I first got my first job, I was on the borderline of, should I go photography full throttle or should I go into employment? Okay. I was just coming from the media space. I did a short stint at K24. So, and I already knew that I was more into human interest stories more than hard news. But then I needed a bigger playing field than just the newsroom. Okay. That would allow me to get in touch with people. So at that time when I would decide, I was even a double for a wedding. I did tried a fashion show shoot, tried a couple.
You did wedding photography.
Yeah. So I was actually feeling the photography vibe for a while, but then it was more like I really need a job. Just recently moved out of home, or rather I was just about to. So it was more of, can I survive on my own versus can I pursue my passion? Okay. So I was like, whatever comes first, I'll go with it. And the job did come. So I plunged myself into non-profit world. And so all along, I knew I wanted to give photography a chance as a business. So I ventured into PR and communications for over 10 years, yeah? Yes. So when COVID happened, I was in a limbo there. I was, as a mom, my youngest daughter was not yet 1. There was the pressure of going back after maternity. There was fatigue, when you go back to work after maternity, and people imagine you were sleeping for 3 months, but it was you're literally
very far from that.
Exactly. Yes. So I just took on all the workload that it's like playing pushing the play button from where you stopped, and it was so much.
But you're pushing that play button, but your life has changed.
It
also.
has changed.
Yes.
It has changed. Then you are getting your regular sleep. You pretty much had a flow of your life. But now there's a new baby, there's all that. So I knew I needed to take a rest. And it was becoming evident with every passing month. I knew I needed to slow down.
Okay.
So it was more like, as you slow down, what can I do in this phase? It was a crazy decision at that time. Who quits a job during COVID? But it was more of a decision of, I need to be in a good place, mentally, physically, to be able to give my all to my children, my family. So, and that's when I backed the idea of picture narratives. And I was like, recently gotten fit and being able to do things that I thought I'd, hadn't done for a while.
Like just your passion also?
Yes, I love the outdoors. And the outdoors fueled my passion for nature photography, so to say.
Okay.
So when I was putting together picture narratives, in my mind, I wanted to showcase the beauty of Africa, of Kenya, our beautiful landscapes. And it had been a passion. Like, I wanted to see more and more people embrace deco and stuff like that with our own Kenyan-made, Kenyan-themed photos.
Yes.
And yeah, so I tested my waters. Very interesting entrepreneurship lessons. Quickly learning that you don't start a business today and become a millionaire the next day.
No.
It doesn't work like that.
It's a staircase most of the time.
And quickly just swinging back to my core expertise, which is communications and PR.
Yes.
Because you needed to keep your head up in those turbulent pandemic times. So quickly realizing that I need to allow some growth curve to happen for picture narratives, for this concept to be embraced by people. But how do I survive in the meantime? So going back to what I've been doing, like storytelling.
Storytelling and writing.
And graphics.
Then you started your blog.
Yeah. So I was like, with everything that's happening, this is really rich soil to launch this product. And I was quickly learning the online landscape, the digital landscape, that the internet will always reward you if you're churning out valuable stuff. So quickly knowing that I needed a website presence, but not just a website that's a shell. How can I, talk about values or things that I value and support the nature of the business? Yes. So just taking people through my journey, like, what is it that I go out there and see, and how did I come to a place where I wove in my lifestyle of fitness and hiking with photography, and and what I do best in terms of storytelling. So that's what's been keeping me busy.
I see it must have been quite of a kind of a roller coaster from COVID, bringing up your family, young family, and trying to have a kind of a junction where you're making decisions about, now I'm getting into my own business and all that. And I'm sure we're going to come to that in detail, picture narratives.
Yeah.
But let's now swing back a few decades back. When you were growing up, were you always this storyteller? Were you creative? Were you artsy? Or ilikusurprise baadaye? Did you have an inclination that you would end up around media and PR? Because most of us in media and creative and communications, we're not usually normal people. Even if you trace, you realize there's always something different from all these other kind of careers or jobs. Yeah. How was it like?
So as a child, I was quite the talkative one. I was never afraid starting a conversation with anyone. I even wonder how my mom survived. Because I'd be that kid in the bus having a conversation with the driver, moving to the next passenger. Like, you're just there flowing with life and people. And I think that was a storyteller in me. I always had a story to tell, and I always had an ear to hear a good story. So that was me.
Okay.
Pushing boundaries and all that. I was the girl playing with the boys. Ati, that tree is too tall to climb. Let me show you how we do it. So that was me. There was always for me, life was always an adventure. And of course, you get into adolescence and sort of you carve into a shell and you become the introverted one. But I always knew I wanted to be at the center of
high school drama, debating club.
Oh my God, I was nowhere near that. That was a surprising thing.
Ama hizo shida za adolescence zilikukumba sana, so you just went.
Nilituanga proper. Nikainga chini ya maji. But I did a bit of sports, played a bit of tennis, but I did a stint as a journalism chair in class 7, 8 there. Okay. And I loved to draw. I loved art, whether it was coloring something, and it was always nature inspired.
Or paper craft or something.
Yeah, and something else. My dad used to have this point and shoot camera. So anytime we were out there, I would be photographing. The clouds look amazing today, the trees or whatnot. So the passion of photography started there.
That one must have also set the path for you very early.
It
at
did.
Some point, yes.
So because of that camera, I wanted it to be the lens to my world. So at the point of choosing a career, I think I wanted to see the world. I mean, that was very clear for me. But my dad was like, hey, I don't see any tour guide swimming in money here. So please choose a serious career. And I looked around and I was like, then I'm going to do communications.
Yes.
And that's when I picked, did BA in social communications. Yeah.
The decision making around, this is now after high school.
This is after high school.
Was it complex? Was it push and pull, or was it clear cut? Was it easy for your dad? Was it easy for you when you're deciding about media and of course not tour guide and all? Was it very? Ilikuwa na shida ama, those a little bit sometime back people are struggling a lot with career choices and all that. Yeah.
So it wasn't a big issue for my dad as long as it was a clear, definitive career path. So, and it had to be structured because of course the older generation is thinking about job security.
Yes.
And this is something you can build your life around.
Yes.
So when I mentioned communications, he wasn't resisting at all because he also had a background in communication.
Okay.
So for him, that was a solid career. And when I was thinking communications, I thought newsroom anchoring, stuff like that. But also at the back of my mind, I was like, it has elements of photography. Maybe I can pick that up later. So when we get into school, we begin with photography. And I'm like, I am glad I did choose this career path.
Yes.
And it broadened into video production. And it showed me the possibilities of telling stories in different ways. And the unique thing about the school I went to, it was a Christian institution. So the angle was more of telling stories of communities.
Okay.
So also that played a big role in setting the path for me. It was not just purely for entertainment. For me, it had to be a bigger cause than there's a big why.
Are you saying deep down in your heart, you knew you wanted the social angle of media? Or are you saying that where you went to study, they were emphasizing on that social angle? Is it you or is it the curriculum?
The curriculum was inclined towards sort of community media for development. It was development centered. Okay. But then even with the internships in between in the media, I would find I wasn't really feeling the vibe of hard news. Like something is there and it's expiring at the end of the day. And there are really deep issues happening in the society. So I would find myself gravitating towards environmental stories, human interest stories.
Yes.
And I was like, is there a way this would be my life every day? I'm telling a significant, impactful story every day.
Yes.
And that's when, I hadn't considered working in NGOs before, but
it was destiny was just shifting.
It was just shifting towards that, and of course the usual drama in media houses that happen, new change in management, and everybody is laid off, and you're like, okay, so what next?
Yeah.
You do a series of. Yeah?
So tell me, was your training, and you can tell us where you went to college? Was your training? What role did it play? We have had issues where the curriculums, the teachers were teaching. What role did it play? Did it help you? Did it really prepare you? Did it prepare you 30%, 20%, 100%, 5% for the marketplace? was it kind of up to date? Because we also have a challenge in the industry where between what wanasoma shule and what you do when you come here. Was it relevant? Was it impactful, especially at that stage of your career?
I'd say it was really spot on.
Okay.
Because you literally left school, and even in between those years of practice, and you would find your niche in the workplace.
Okay.
Because, for example, I went to Tangaza now it's Tangaza University, University. Tangaza University College. It's
so it's a college of
Catholic University of Eastern Africa.
But I've never known that part. I just see it up. It's supposed to be a college of Catholic. Okay.
It's a Catholic, yes. And it had amazing teachers, people who have practiced in community and even mainstream media. So you're grounded all around, even with issues to do with media law. Okay. If you were someone keen on broadcasting, we had relevant content. We had lecturers who'd come and teach you performance. How do you, project? How do you hone your voice to be for broadcasting? Yes. We had really high-tech studios. Like, we literally practiced. If you're in radio, equipment was top-notch, latest. It wasn't at
you guys were in a very nice place.
We were in. By the way, nowadays I just walk around or I hear stories from people. I go like, "Huko ni wapi?" Like, this school was the deal. And at that time, even the fee was unimaginable. It was very reasonable. And I think it was that element of that institution wanting to offer something top-notch, but not break your bank,
Yes. And within the pockets range of a lot of
exactly
parents,
a lot of parents. So from me, and then we were exposed to a lot of things. Like, what I ended up doing, communications and PR, was just a unit. Like, we did PR in school, but I majored in videography. But even then, I was able to quickly maneuver my way in my career and adapt what we learned.
Okay.
It's not like, the way you show up in a place and they tell you these are the roles we expect you to do and you're shying off. No, it was more of a curiosity. Like, I remember we did,
So you're saying you majored in videography, but still when you started out, you knew you're going to be your camera for photography, itaendelea. And also your writing, you also knew it was not far from where you were.
It wasn't.
That's what you're telling us, right?
It wasn't.
Okay. So after Kutangaza, then they threw out into the market. How were your earlier days in your career like? I think you had mentioned to me there was a media house, and then there was also was Wellerman the first?
Yes.
So how was it like, and how did you find your space and your voice in your career? Maybe you can paint for us that picture.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So in between the media house and getting my first job, I worked. I did a lot of video editing with production houses. So just being like a trainee editor of sorts.
So ni kuedit tu news.
Sasa kwa newsroom ilikuwa kuedit news na feature stories. Kwa hizi production houses, it was more of they have a documentary, and that time the big clients were NGOs really.
Yes.
So
the guys who could run like 30 minutes after news or something. Documentaries.
Yes, you see those documentaries that run after news. Yes. So like, for example, at Silver Screen would produce documentaries. So either they were for TV or just for the organization's consumption to their donors.
The organizations could subcontract the media houses.
No, they subcontract video production houses. So for example, now like Photo Magic, Yes. Okay. So now I would be working there with the main editor, doing raw cuts and all that, and then together weaving, just learning the entire editing.
Were you the one sitting up on a squeeze mlikuwa mna edit na nini?
Ilikuwa Adobe Premiere Pro.
Okay. Were you sitting there?
Sitting on the desk, doing the cuts, listening and seeing what's relevant for you. There's a script already. You're looking at what weaves in to make this story. Alafu mnakaa hapo na editor, then you just complete that. So that was really good training ground. So by the time I was coming to the newsroom, I knew how to script the story, go out, film it. And of course, we're working with a cameraman, then coming up and sitting and editing it. So even if the editing platforms change now, like from Adobe Premiere Pro to Final Cut, I was just still flowing with it, and I was able to deliver a full story that would run on the news.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you mention at one point you worked with which media house again?
So at K24.
K24.
Yeah.
Which year was that?
That was 2010.
2010. How long were you there? And was it still editing and those feature stories?
Yeah, it was still editing. What happened in the newsroom, you're just considered a journalist just like any other, whether you're interning or not. So you have that meeting in the morning, which these are the leading stories you're sent, whether it's a press conference, whether it's a one-on-one interview. And of course, you had those opportunities you have an idea, you have slotted, you've identified potential people to interview for your story. You go out, bring us a story that can run that day. So you go, and as you quickly learn that there's really no time. Like if your story is supposed to run at 1, even as the story is unfolding in front of you, you're thinking already, you're there with the cameraman. I'm like, this quote was said at what time? So when you get there, you're there with the people from archives, you're cutting, you're like, I want that snippet.
And everything is moving so fast. Yes.
Then if your voice has been approved for VO, you can go ahead into the booth, record your script once it's approved, then you come and lay out and cut it out. If your voice isn't approved, you find a fellow journalist who can voice your story.
Yes.
Do the whole thing. And it runs because all this hard work has to go today. If it's not, it's no longer relevant. It doesn't make the cut. So there was that. And I think that was really good training ground for being on your toes.
And K24 was still new that time?
It had been there for some time. It had been there for some time.
But they were still looking for their market share in the media space. And
yes, it did. Yeah. It did. And because of that, you were really exposed to a lot of opportunities to hone your skills.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you made your transition now to your communication and media and PR related stuff.
Yes.
In an NGO proper. Sasa ukapata kazi.
Nikapata kazi
ile sasa, even your dad could have said sasa.
Yeah, sasa at least ako kwa payroll mahali. It's a relief.
And also the pressure and the thanklessness of media. Media jobs have this just too much pressure and everything moves so fast.
Yeah.
And you get lost in the chaos of the media house. But at least I believe in the NGO now you're able to slow down a little bit, maybe,
but not so, because media is always busy, but there's a team. In NGOs, depending on how big it is, it also determines your scope of work. So where I was, my first place, I was a communications officer, which meant you ran the whole department by yourself.
Wewe ni Superman.
Yes, Superman, Superwoman. Wewe ndio script writer, wewe ndio unatengeneza content ya website, you organize for press.
Had you already started posting social media, at least on Facebook?
Yes. Surprisingly, in 2020, that was 2011. Yes,
there was
Facebook,
at least Facebook and Twitter kanajaribu those days.
Yes. So I know, right? Like for that institution, we really had a presence on Twitter and on Facebook.
Yes.
So you are there. You are the brains behind the documentaries. You are there interviewing beneficiaries, you're the one doing newsletters, you're creating calendars, content calendars for all that.
Media releases.
Exactly. Press releases, you're there. If the CEO has a speech to give somewhere, you're writing speeches. You're pitching, you're also the photographer. And now if you have a big project like a documentary, now you have the opportunity to accompany the videography crew. You do the interviews yourself. You sit down with them as they edit. You vet and just make sure you have the final product that you desire. So you're everything.
The JD was just one long page.
You see that line everyone puts at the end, and any other assigned duties. That one, it's even more than the main ones that are listed on.
But you hacked it, I think.
It did.
You hacked it because we met when we were doing what? Some designs for a project.
Yes. So that first organization mainly was about women empowerment and protection from violence for women and children. So it was around the election period. We had a campaign that graciously the creative community were able to hear us out, sit with us and together co-create
to craft a campaign.
So we came up with Mama Kenya at that time. And I knew internally we didn't have a dedicated graphic designer. And for this campaign to really live to its aspirations, we needed to outsource all this.
Yes.
And the thing is, if you have a really good concept, donors will fund it. And I remember quickly putting, our director then would put together, and the project manager would put together proposals, and we have this, and we have a name. And so it was bringing in Pinkfoot at that time. Yeah. We have a logo ID, we have a message around it, we have a whole concept on how we want to sensitize people.
This was 2011 heading to 2012 elections, right?
So it was a 2013 election, so we are doing it 2012 going into that. Yes. So we have a whole concept, and and just now leveraging on the support of outsourced teams. So we are staying on top of things. So now, of course, you can't be a one-woman show because things will fall through the cracks. So for those big campaigns, you're able to strategically plan and say, how is our story being crafted? How is it being documented? Because there are elements of knowledge management and because they all go into informing our audience. This is what we're doing. And together we put it together. We had a song, we had a music video, we had a documentary.
Oh, by the way,
yes, we were showing up in traffic and having people painted to show the different faces of violence. And it was quite sobering just witnessing, sometimes when an issue is detached from you, it doesn't really concern you. But you wake up one day and in traffic you see women, they have, the makeup artist has really done a good job to just portray how violence really looks like. And we're just coming from
the special effects. Or the special effects, or just
makeup.
Just makeup. Nice looking.
Yes.
Okay.
But you see, we were just coming up from PV in 2008. It's just a reminder of people like, this piece is really hard earned. And small mistakes for not upholding cohesion could result in scenarios like this. So, and finding a way to just translate your story and your message just from, when you do sometimes digital, you can be quite detached from your community.
Yes. Like ground.
People in the ground really need to see it. So those skits and the skits in the community really brought people to interrogate and get the message of the campaign
and have more impact and be there to see it. I think the challenge you're saying for social, sometimes you don't know if people are hiding behind a mask. You don't know its authenticity as much.
Exactly.
But when you're on the ground, it was so that was a really good 360-degree campaign because you were there, you were on the ground, you are online, you are in every imaginable platform, you're there doing TV interviews, you are in documentaries, you're really making a good case for the message that you have to deliver. So tell me, even with this 360 campaign, now I believe, did it give you an opportunity now to spread your wings and practically implement your communication skills, writing, photography? To what extent did it now start positioning your career, the way you wanted, or even helping you understand? Take us into that space in terms of now storytelling. You started writing and the social media ndio ilikuwa imeanza kupanda kidogo. Take us into that space.
So it was, for me, that campaign showed me the possibilities that are out there with storytelling. And also just the value of leading with a human touch, a human angle. So I could see why that was an aspect that drew me all along. That if you lead with a heart, if you connect with people's emotions, your message, your stories have a bigger chance of being embodied, embraced, because you're literally painting the scenarios in day-to-day life. You're not just imagining something. You're walking the talk with somebody.
You're connecting with the people where they are.
Exactly. So if it's Mama Mboga, if it's Mtua Kinyozi, if it's the president, you're really crafting the message to their level. And it began the journey of, really, making a case for, so who am I talking to? For this story to make sense, you really have to be clear on one, your overall goal for that particular project. Two, who are you targeting with that message? Because the goal can be further translated to actionable goals for the different target audience. Alafu, from there, each audience has their own story.
Yes.
If it's Mama Mboga who I'm talking to about awareness, for example, about sexual and gender-based violence, you need to translate it for her in, this is how it looks like. That black eye, that person didn't fall down. They were assaulted somewhere.
Yes, yes.
And such cases can be reported. You report such a case here and here and here. And if you're shy of reporting, you go to a gender desk in the police station, you really break it down to something they are able to do.
Yes.
Yeah?
And maybe it's something that they have seen either for their colleagues,
or their neighbor or something.
Yes.
You really are giving them the power with information to act. Now you're going to a policymaker, our politicians, you're telling them, this issue, by the way, it's not one-off. You're telling them we've been observing data. There's really an increase, for example, in violence against women. And this is what you can do. One, we need places to receive these women. We need safe houses, for example, where they can come, they can be treated, they can receive counseling, they can learn a skill that they can earn a living with. Yes. You see, they need a practical look. Like, I'm a leader, I am promising a lot in terms of delivering to you a better future as my constituents. But I don't know how to do that most of the time because I may be detached from the issues in the community. But if I craft my story in a way that I also show you practical ways to do it, you're able to go in Bunge and say, okay, this will bring, and you're not just speaking figuratively, you have examples. This community has had shelters. This is how many people they receive. So there's actually a solid case on how you can implement.
They have been given like economic empowerment.
Exactly. And that's how you reintegrate them back to community. So it grounded me on how to tell those stories and customize them to different audiences.
Talking of GBV, what other... When you were working at Well and you're handling media, communication, and PR, you started interacting with what kind of themes? So you've said like GBV. Was that the core, or were there other topics that you could interact with?
So GBV was a big one because we were based along Gong Road at that time. The communities around us around that time was Kibera and Kawangware.
And all these informal settlements.
The informal settlements around us, that was a very big issue.
Yes.
And not just to save them, even people in very good homes were also experiencing that.
I've done projects with the GBV, and in fact, some of them, we see them on TV. They appear, they are leaders, they are politicians, they are media personalities, they're in corporate sector.
Yes.
Some of them have started coming out. It's a deep problem.
It is. It is. So we needed to act on an immediate issue because there was a lot of defilement cases, rape cases, and just collaborating with the whole women ecosystem, women CSO ecosystem. People like GVRC would be there. They can give that treatment. That people can give legal services and all that. So something else that we also worked on was you've been able to counsel this person. They're able to know their worth, their value. They know what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. But you realize the things that keep them grounded in violent relationships, for example, is they're not able to sustain their upkeep. Quickly, you know that you need to empower them economically. So we had an element.
So that they don't slide back to their husbands or partners because they need money.
There's that. They need to be able to trust that they can stand on their own 2 feet. But this is someone who's not been to school or they dropped out pretty early, but there is something they can do. So quickly we would teach people how to, even Mama Mbogas, just teaching them how to keep simple books. How do you track your income? How do you plan for your new stock? Yes. And then things like jewelry. We wear a lot of African jewelry. How do you make those necklaces? How do you make floor mats? How do you make handbags? All that. Quickly, we were able to diversify that portfolio and teach women how to fend for themselves and for their children. Then there was an element of leadership. There was a big gap, and at that time there was a lot of ask that we would want to see more gender representation in parliament and in leadership spaces. But there was a gap because women, yes, are willing, but do they know how to speak? Do they know how to engage? Do they know what
get the positions?
Yes,
but do they have the voice?
Yes, do they have the confidence? Do they know how to engage, debate, present an issue, and carry it all the way to the end?
But you still, even in those parliaments, their space is still suppressed, kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll find the men will still suppress them. They will not give them the space that they need. Yeah.
Yeah. So the women leadership element of it was funded to teach, like, go all over the country at that time. Find women who are vying. Show them how to even put together a campaign. How do you speak to your constituents? How do you brand yourself as a woman leader?
And all this was still part of the Nimama.
No, that's not Mama Kenya. So
but still under your organization.
Under the organization.
A different project.
Yeah, so it had like big 4 pillars.
So it had this project that was empowering and supporting women who are seeking positions of leadership.
Yes. And so what we do now, after you've done all those we worked with a big team of people in projects who would do the training, collaborate with women in media, who would tell them, by the way, when you're invited to an interview, please, this is how you talk, this is how you articulate your issues. And it was a whole well thought through process. And then we'd bring them together in a conference. I think one of the big conferences we had at Safari Park at the time was, how now do we bring aspiring women leaders with existing women leaders to talk to each other and see how they elevate, improve the quality of their leadership, what the issues are, even where the space they're going into, how does it look like? So you're not just walking blindly. So it was a really strategic one. And even after that, working with other institutions to profile these women.
Yes.
So storytelling again, this is her background, this is what she aspires to do when she comes in. So the communications element was pretty much supporting all the core strategic pillars of the organization.
Okay, so we are talking about being at Well. You were at Well until around what time?
Until 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So after 2014, ulitoka huko ukaenda wapi?
Nikaenda, there's a USAID project called Kenya Agricultural Value Chain Enterprises, USAID KIVS. And so the biggest, the goal was to commercialize smallholder farming. We have always known Kenya is an agricultural country. Smallholder farmers are the ones who feed us. Ule mkulima wa kila siku. But we wanted to take it a step further. Like, you're not just growing to feed your family. You need to realize you have the potential to feed the entire country. But you need to demonstrate that,
So now, like you said, this is now matters food security.
This is food security.
Okay.
So it's going to understand. So why are smallholders just being able to produce for their family? How come there's no surplus that can make business for them? And it's working with a very genius team of technical people who've understood this value chain. It was mostly staples. So you're looking at maize. Why aren't we producing maize optimally? Why isn't sorghum such a big crop? We're looking at horticulture. There's such potential in export. Why aren't we? What are the gaps here? What can we do? You're looking at dairy.
Let me pause you. You're coming from being a communication officer, where you're dealing with communication, newsletters, media, going to the field. And so was this, you said, was it a consultancy or it was like a contract job?
No, this was a job.
It was a job. So you just left this one and then you reported to your new station and you're working on this food security project.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to know whether it was a consultancy. So full-time, mambo yako, food security and related issues.
Yes.
And was it different? Was it different from the one at for women in terms of like your job description, the skills that you needed to bring? What skills were you bringing into this job? Was it more, it looks like it's more narrowed down, but was it more taxing or how was it?
It was narrowed down to the extent that I was coming in to support. There's an existing communication strategy. So this is the funded project. We already know technically what we need to deliver, but we have a communications element of it that needs to support us.
Wow.
So it was giving
the technical team was there.
Technical team was there.
Yes.
But they bring their own expertise, just like communications PR brings their own expertise. The thing with communications is, how is this project now talking to the internal audiences, who is the employees, the team inside? How are we talking to our donors? How are we talking now to the audiences outside, the wakulima, the farmers? Service providers who are working with the farmers. Is it the people, the agro vets, people providing machinery, other government institutions working with
maybe
farmers?
Maybe we already had county governments trying to support farmers in their own way.
What are county governments doing? How can we enhance this? How do we communicate this? So
and you're also dealing with other grassroots organizations now
who are also helping you do that. So for example, we've identified the issues of its increasing productivity. Then you realize, maybe the variety of maize we've been planting, it's not producing optimally for this ecological area. So it's looking at all those things. But as a communicator, it's how do we package this information,
for different audiences.
So for county government, it was also a strategy. We came up with a very interesting strategy, the team at Caves. When we've discovered all these technologies, approaches that are working, that we can actually see, the farmer has gone to just producing, 5 bags of maize. They're now producing 10, 20 bags of maize.
Yes.
And with that comes new challenges. How do you preserve this? How do you sell this? How do you market this? So it was more of seeing, so how has the county and the government at large been working with? And one strategic way the county was working was through these trade fairs. We've been going to showground every other year, but they are very useful platforms because there you bring farmers, you bring everyone in the whole value chain,
to
showcase what they're doing. So a farmer may not show up for a field school. They had their own schools, like a farmer field school.
They go to visit farm visits. And
you see how that farmer is doing to be able to produce that. Maybe your cow is just producing 5 liters. Your neighbor's cow is producing 20 liters. How are they able to pull that? But now it's the trade fair takes that to a whole new level
and put it all in one place.
So by the time you've done your trip around that square,
all your questions have been answered.
Your questions have been answered. You have contacts. You're just ready to go and expand. And it was such a really good strategy. And in that, it's like packaging this information. What's your take home? You're branding, you're packaging that information in simple brochures they can take away. It's making it accessible. It's also letting know the service providers the potential.
Yes.
Like this and these farmers are interested. That connectivity, that broadening, opening up the markets.
Yes. I am looking at the transformation of your skills as a communication professional and wondering, because there are people who are watching and they would want to see themselves where you are, maybe in 3, 4, 5, 6 years, especially beginners. Between your second job in the NGO where you're dealing with women issues and now you're in food, your skills, did you have to learn new skills? Sijui kama saa hizo kulikuwa na millions of tutorials on YouTube. Did you, because you went to videography, in college at Tangaza, and of course you had a bit of photography starting from your dad's camera, but in between dealing with GBV and being at a well, and then coming into the USAID project on food security. Did you have to learn new skills? Did you have to improve and kind of upgrade the ones you have? Because I believe we're in a very fluid space where you have to keep up. Sometimes inachokesha sana. What would you tell somebody in terms of keeping up with your skills, picking up new ones, upgrading the ones you started with, lakini they need? How is that?
So the skill it's an evolving skill. So you see, like coming into the development world, you're not writing for news anymore.
Yes.
You're writing for the development sphere. The audiences majorly are your donors. You need to report how are you leveraging the funds, what impact are you achieving. You're also talking to your target audience, whether it's the women or these farmers. You want to encourage them. by a story of a fellow farmer who
Yes.
took up these best practices and their
Yes.
life has transformed phenomenally.
Okay.
So learning to sort of craft human interest stories for
different
different audiences.
with different tone and language.
The tone has
Yes.
to change. For example, the way I write for the farmer would be different from the donors
Yes, to your
or
donors
our
or partners. Yes.
So it's quickly learning, and it came at a great advantage because the organization I worked with had a big communications department,
Yes.
majorly based in New York, DC. So
You're talking about USAID here.
yeah, so for USAID, of course, subgrants other organizations to implement
Yes,
the
now
project.
the major project.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was FinTrack that was implementing the USAID Kids project, and we had a big team, and they knew the value of investing in continuous training.
Yes.
So even going in, the bigger communications team would know this is how we like to take our photos, for example. This is how we like to frame our stories. So those tidbits of information, and they would even come all the way to Kenya and just say, okay, let's go to the field, do a dry run. If you were to get a farmer today,
Yes.
how do you go about interviewing them? What kind of shots really tell a story? How do you come back and do that?
Just to ensure that the way the stories are packaged is the way we want it.
Yeah,
Like
and
a
it's
quality control.
exactly,
of
it's a
sorts.
quality control tactic, and it made it uniform. So whether FinTrack was implementing a project for USAID in Kenya or Honduras or Zimbabwe, you would see the brand consistency.
Yes.
So that it tells you how, just having the right idea for your brand is essential,
very
because
important.
everywhere people interact with you, they know this is USAID. This is USAID all over. Yeah.
It's very funny because you've just made me remember one time a story I like to share about being in the media space. One time I was doing a research and somebody was doing research and they came, how watu wanakuja kuambia, I would like to do an interview. We are doing a research for this data collection. And then they ask, so what career are you in? And then I came to learn that when they realize you're in media, they terminate those interviews immediately because a media person is not your everyday person. Because you learn, you know too much, more than the average person.
Yeah.
But then I have also encountered scenarios where we have people in our space who don't know that too much. Today you are dealing with this GBV and related, let me say, women issues. And now you have jumped to sorghum and maize and millet and
milk
all that.
and all that.
Don't know if there was, and soya and all these things. Did you find yourself in a tight corner where you have to now start learning new things about agriculture, food systems, and how important was it? Because there are people who will watch this, who are watching this podcast, and they may be underestimating. What do you have to tell them? The importance, the relevance? Is it burning midnight oil, or utasema wale watajisomea, mimi wacha nipige picha na niandike? How important is it, especially for writing, because you're the carriers of the information for the people who are watching? How important is it, and is it a sacrifice, a necessary evil? How is it like?
I'd say pursuing your passion is a labor of love. When you love something, of course it's not static. It changes. Even if it's a person, we all change over time.
Yes.
So the same way even with writing. All along, the anchor of my career has been writing.
Yes.
But it's changed for newsroom, it's changed for nonprofit, it's changed for GBV world, and it changed for food security. What you learn quickly is to be very adaptable and versatile. What actually helped me learn the language was reading content in that sphere. For example, so I'll start a new job. That first month where everyone is busy orienting you, I'd spend time to read previous annual reports, previous newsletters, to get the language. It will take a while to get the language, but if you lead with that, you're reading. Also, from the reading, you get a sense of this is how the tone, this is how they write. These are the big issues for our donors. Every time I'm writing, I need to be able to make sure I'm touching on these key pillars and these key issues.
You'll be talking about how climate change affects food production, markets. And, yes.
So a tactic that's worked for me is the first time you get, like that first quarter, you are consuming a lot. And it doesn't stop. It's just because you will be expected to churn out and produce outputs from your role, but it helps. And now continuously, reading. So that's when I also would immerse myself in communities, communicators in food security, for example. Right now, we are doing so well in those networks. You'll find communicators are coming together in WhatsApp groups or other channels, whether it's Slack. We are all learning from each other. So you're learning tactics that work. You're learning languages, key tactics that are proving useful for your organization, and we're in the same sphere. So you're able to, even because it's a really tight workspace, and you may not have lengthy months and weeks to come up with a genius idea, but you're still able to see this worked for them. How can you customize it for yourself? So being in those presence, you're in the right networks, you're reading, even if it means every day after work, there's something you're consuming to edify your language, to keep you...
And to grow the skills.
Yes, and also if it means like on social media, I would follow, like, I mean, food security, I'm looking at everybody in food security. Who are the top speakers? What are their handles? What are the issues they're talking about? So even when I'm here at work and translating stories into different pieces, whether I'm crafting content for social media, it's a blog, it's a report, I know at any given time these are the issues. These issues, how are they portrayed in the news? Because when you're crafting, you're making a case for your cause. It has to have its own grounding, because your audiences want to know, why should we care about what you're doing? How is it addressing all the bigger issues around? So it's just keeping your eyes and ears wide open and taking it on in stride.
I'm listening to you talking, and I'm seeing again a gospel I like to tell people around content and comms. When you're doing this USAID project, this is the one for the book, the report that you showed me. A very big PDF report, I think 100 and something pages. I can bet you are dealing with a multimedia approach. Was it?
It was.
This perhaps was your core, the book, the report. So you are doing a lot of writing and rewriting, summary and detailed reports. Were there other outputs? Where was the graphics? Was there social media? Was there YouTube videos? Was there documentary shooting? Was there pictures? To what extent were those different mediums present in your project?
So they were all there. It was all a matter of the strategy and the tact we were employing. When we started, it was pretty much understanding what the project was about. So mostly it was written, because we didn't have results to show. So of course you can't go filming, taking photos and all that. But then as we started seeing results, it meant with every quarter you're doing a quarterly report to your donor, you need to have a success story. That's written, but you also need to go to the ground, take photos of those farmers, get their captions, get to understand their journey, interview the technical person who was helping them implement those best practices, can package it into a nice written story. And
for you, were you doing the interviews? Were you taking pictures? What were you doing?
I was there taking the photos, doing the interviews, and crafting, packaging the whole scripts. So for example, now at the end of the project, we have amassed all this impact. It was more of how do we tell these stories. So now there was a multimedia approach to telling this story.
And you're working with a big team.
Yes.
Some other people also taking the pictures.
Yes, we bring on board a video documentary crew. You go with them, you craft the interview questions, you're there interviewing the farmers, the crew is filming, crew is helping you edit into different documentaries. You're also working with media because of
Sometimes
expanding
you
the
throw
reach.
the stories to them so that they can run on
And
mainstream
even
media.
just learning with the media is knowing that sometimes they don't want you to do the hard work of putting the story for
Yes,
them.
yes.
They want to see the evidence for themselves. So having a media tour combined with all that, they were able to see these results for themselves.
Yes,
So as I was packaging my stories for reporting to the donor, they are packaging the story for the general public.
So did you guys like travel to many regions in the country? Like how big was it?
So the project was in 22 counties. We went to all those 22 counties
within a span of
less than 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, so there are those stories that I'd been gathering, but then the last for those 4 months for sure we went to even 10 counties.
Okay.
And just picking out the big stories that we had that we were waiting to culminate, and now that they're here, and now just doing the whole documentation.
Okay. I think we can transition because I want our audience, the guys, our viewers, to also understand the scope for some of these projects. You know, I have personally been involved in some of them. Well, I haven't done 22 counties, but I think I've done a project where I've gone to like 6, 7, 8 counties. Though I've done a project that has made me travel a lot, almost every corner of the country. But then in terms of the outputs and the variation and the difference, the multimedia kind of output. At that time, was there a lot of, that is 20, we're talking about 20.
So this is 2017. Yeah.
Social media ilikuwa imeanza kuingia kwa space and was it as powerful? Ama ink on paper was still the main one? Maybe you can give us that space in between documentaries. How are your outputs? And online kulikuwa na vitu zinawekwa kwa website, kwa which social media platforms, if you can remember, for this USAID project?
So social media was picking up actually. That's when we started the conversations about wanting to trend on Twitter and stuff like that. So our communication for that project was majorly handled from the home office, but our role was to create content. So, and a good strategy was really being relevant in, this International Commemoration Day, like World Food Day, for example.
You anchor your projects to those days. Yes, very
so
important.
It's a good strategy anchoring them on those commemoration days, also with global issues that are happening at that time. So we'd craft stories, share the photos we took in the fields or short videos, and so most of the time that was it. And also
you ride on the wave of those international days.
Yes. Like those international days are really strategic to make sure you're not quiet. Your audiences are constantly getting feedback from you, and they know this is what you also stand for as an organization regarding this particular issue.
Yes.
And the themes that always keep changing. And then now in terms of for example, I know we were not so big in terms of trending. But when we had those big highlights,
you joined the conversation.
You joined the conversation. So I remember, like, for when we were closing out the project, we have all these beautiful nuggets of wisdom, things that have worked for this project, and we wanted the gems to be left with people to take them on. So like that's when we brought in a digital team that was sitting inside the conference.
Keyboard warriors
walikuwa hapo tweeting about that and working with a graphic designer to just create posters nice that would key messages to take away. And then of course now also channeling out the documentaries. That also go to show the impact. And of course newspapers and mainstream media was a big thing. So we were also present there, helping, working and profiling. When you're in these expert places, you want to profile your colleagues as thought leaders.
Yes.
So you work with them to know what message do you want to say, how do we put it across, how do you say it. So whether they're penning the story themselves, other communications experts, you help to pen those stories. Also finding opportunities for them to be interviewed.
Yes, and because they're also opinion shapers.
Yes.
They're areas of expertise.
Yes. So that we also had that, being featured in the dailies, having speaking engagements on TV. And you realize some of this, for people to know the impact, you have your communication strategy, your campaign strategy has to be 360 again, like what we did in Well.
Yeah.
And also they may need an anchor activity.
Yeah.
So for example, like
an activity that will be the platform where now you come and serve something.
People get visibility on that. So for Caves, it was, and we had a really good team with my colleague there, just thinking through, these are our biggest, for example, we were calling them our legacy. We were in 3 value chains, and also we had worked with youth and women. What could we say is our take home after all these years of practice?
Yes.
And then now those key areas resulted in county and national forums where we were now disseminating.
Okay.
This is our expert reports and expert feedback on having worked in this space.
Yes.
So you see, these forums became our channels to invite the media because they had a wider reach to reach our audiences. And so we did that for fodder. We even had one for nutrition. We had one for youth. And it was a great platform to even just go beyond us, bring in our partners, the national government, county governments, value chain players.
A lot of stakeholders and partners.
Yes.
I'm wondering for sometimes as creative people, tunapenda kukaa peke yetu. You can just sit with your laptop and do your stuff. But then I listened to this project, especially this one. It was huge. It was monstrous. But then what do you have to say about traits like teamwork, the importance of teamwork, and knowing where do you fit in the grand scheme of things, whether you're doing photography, you're writing, and what would you advise somebody maybe who wants to, I get a lot of, some of the times we do events, especially from people like photographers and such, you're working on a project and you will just be one of the team players. Lakini wewe umezoea kufanya mambo yako peke yako. What would you advise them? What is the importance of knowing how to work with a team, and what traits do you need? What expectations?
I'd say it's very key. No matter what personality you have, whether introverted or extroverted, when you're in an institution or even with your craft and you want your craft to have bigger impact, you have to be a leader yourself. Being a leader means seeing multiple perspectives. So it's not me, keyboard warrior, photographer here, but if I'm just here, I will always be here. But if I am interacting, it means I am putting myself where the conversations are happening. Where the conversations are happening, they're stimulating ideas in my head. I'm able to speak and articulate my ideas. I go like, so this technical person has talked about maybe an issue in the community. Maybe they're talking about, for example, sorghum is really good. I don't know how we'll get everyone to take it on board. So if you're there maybe as a communications person or creative person, you would go like, maybe we need a campaign,
to shift people's
ideas, and maybe a moving campaign. So you think about road shows, something. Maybe you would think about, in this day and age, you probably think about a video, or you would probably think about radio conversations, because mashinani people listen to a lot of radio. But you're where people are talking about issues, you are able to enrich those discussions from a creative perspective. And that's how you should be thinking. Ni kujituma. You need to send yourself, you need to be interested.
What about dealing with different personalities in a team? All kinds of people, some will be pleasant, some will be laid back, some will be bossy. How did you navigate that? Because we're also very temperamental as artsy people. How do people navigate that whole mix of different people? In a big team like that, mko kwa field, mumefikisha saa 10 hamjakula, there are all manner of issues. Or you're working with somebody who's delaying you. Mimi nataka kulayout kitu na unanichelewesha. How did it teach you to deal with the teams and to work with different people and personalities?
That's a good question. They're always different people. you can't always dictate the environment you're going. But for me, adaptability also means going in with an empathetic mind frame. Maybe it came easy to me because I'm pretty level-headed. And I also take time to understand things before I decide how to react. So that ability to sit back, analyze, see possible, not just one, I can react out of anger, but I sort of play things out ahead in my head. So I go like, if I go this way, this and this will happen.
Yes.
But if I go this way and this way, this and this, and the outcome is much better. So that ability to anticipate, being flexibility, being accommodative, but also being also knowing how to deal with those murky situations. There's an outburst here.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes, emotional intelligence is really critical because it will help you navigate these spaces. And for that team, we were like a team of 50 people. And for some time, it's also knowing it's not always about winning. For me, just thinking about what's the best thing for this entire team. Project. I don't think about me, Kathy.
But you're the one who wants to shine. You're the one who look like the hero.
You think about the entire project. So you'll find yourself in a situation, maybe also in the team, you're like, so and so are worrying. They're going to delay our outputs. It's more of going and building personal relationships. Teamwork is also building individual relationships with everyone in the team.
Yes.
And that has gone a long way in terms of helping us. And I've found myself having conversations here. Sometimes it just takes your time to explain something to someone to broaden their perspective. Okay. And when they appreciate it, they come back to the table and they go like, okay, so that's what
you meant, or
that's what I meant. Yes, and this is probably how you'll appreciate my support better. So it's being that, being emotionally intelligent, being empathetic, being strategic, also getting mentorship and getting advice.
Yes,
we had that kind of boss you would walking into his office any day. And if a scenario was too big for you to break down, you would go like, how do you
need
think,
some support here?
How do you think I could go through this?
How do you navigate?
Navigate this space. So it's having those people you can count on who have a wealth of experience beyond yours that you can
call on them to
guide you
to deal with issues.
Yeah.